Yo, what's going on guys? HyperX here, welcome back to another video for Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and today it's finally time. After lots of thorough testing, refining and experimenting, I present to you the ultimate Fatalis guide. Everything you need to know to hopefully help you take down the final challenge, the legendary Black Elder Dragon. Of course, if you guys do enjoy this and do find it helpful, then a like would be super appreciated. Be sure to share it with anyone that you know is having trouble. And of course, let me know down below how you guys are getting on, or if you did anything different that works well for you. In this guide, I'll break down the various phases of the fight, provide some general tips for fighting the monster, some moves to watch out for, and I'll share the armor sets me and the team ran to take Fatalis down. So, let's begin. First things first, the Fatalis fight revolves around a number of phases. If you're jumping in for the first time, you're actually forced to do the very first bit on your own, but honestly that bit is pretty easy. It's essentially a glorified tutorial. You have the A-lister alongside you to provide support, both with firepower and healing, and all you really need to do in this section is deal enough damage to Fatalis to trigger the cutscene. From that point on, you're then able to SOS or join the hunt with friends. However, if you are struggling with that first bit, then sit tight, as some of the tips I go over in this video will apply to this section too. Now, before we dive into the phases themselves, I want to cover some general tips for Fatalis, some basic gameplay mechanics that will apply throughout the fight. Number 1. Use Dragon Pods. These are going to be your best friend in the hunt. Fatalis drops Dragon Pods all the time, and you can also Clutch Claw onto him to make him drop more. And the reason they're so good is because firing 2 Dragon Pods into him will make him flinch pretty much all the time. There are a few exceptions, like if he's just off the back of a big animation or if you've just flinched him, but 99% of the time you can flinch him out of pretty much anything. Flinch him out of moves, flinch him to calm him down. The team and I basically call this the Fatalis vibe check, because you know, every now and then you just need to give him a little vibe check, see how he's feeling. But yeah, use your Dragon Pods because they will quite literally save your life or your teammates. It gives you room to breathe, room to heal, etc. Number 2, do not forget to yeet Fatalis into the wall for big damage. This is incredibly useful for working towards his head break. However, there's a couple of things to note. First up, if he's up on his hind legs, while it is possible to yeet him or flinch shot him, it won't do much damage. In order to get the big damage numbers, you need to have him on all fours. However, rather conveniently, Capcom thought of this and gave us a nice little window. If he's up on his hind legs, you can perform the flinch shot, aka the yeet, to drop him on all fours, and following that he still won't be enraged, so you will then have a window to Clutch Claw onto his head again and yeet him into the wall. You ideally want to do this anytime he's not enraged because the damage is 100% worth it. It's also important to note that breaking Fatalis' head reduces his fire damage. His head can be broken twice, and doing so also gives you the Fatalis Eye, which is one of the drops you need in order to craft the armor and the weapons, so keep this in mind. Lastly, Fatalis has a pretty nasty pin move where your teammate will quite literally get glued to his glowing chest, and later they'll be bitten off and thrown away. Giving Fatalis a little vibe check, aka shooting with 2 Dragon Pods, will flinch him and cause him to drop your teammate. In fact, if at any point you see Fatalis about to kill a teammate with a nasty move, don't forget to fire those Dragon Pods because they will just interrupt it and again could save a life. Basically, 2 Dragon Pods a day keeps Fatalis away. Now, with some of the general tips covered, let's break down this fight into phases. The first phase takes place outside the gates. Here, your primary goal is to deal enough damage to trigger Fatalis' first flame breath, and hide beneath the Iron Curtain until it all blows over. So, what do you need to do? Well, first things first, the strategy that we have been doing is having one member of our team gem in heavy artillery, and for the entirety of the hunt, that person is the only person who uses the cannons, the ballista, and the roaming ballista. That same person also equips a ghillie mantle and flies into the quest first. In doing so, they're able to sneak up to the cannons and load them. Meanwhile, the other 3 team members run down and start fighting Fatalis. These 3 need to focus on getting the first yeet in. Doing so will of course see Fatalis run into the wall, will deal a good chunk of damage, and following this, the whole team will then run over to the cannons to cause Fatalis to move in that direction. Watch out in the event that he tries to snipe you with fireballs or flaming breath, but eventually he should come your way. Once he's here, you want to try and avoid making him flinch, so don't go firing any Dragon Pods just yet, and let your cannon guy fire off the shots. Ideally, if you land all of them, this should cause Fatalis to fall down, which then gives you an opening to pile onto his head and deal a good chunk of damage. However, if you miss a couple of cannon shots, the cannon user can then run over to the ballista and fire a few more shots, and this should do the job. Ideally, in this first area, you want to secure a yeet for some good damage, you want to secure the cannon fire for both damage and the knockdown, and if you do both of these successfully, and you're just attacking him and doing decent damage, you should meet the damage threshold and cause him to fly into the sky and rain down fire. When he does this, what you want to then do is run underneath this shelter. I call it the Iron Curtain because it has fabric on it, and the first time I looked at it, I just thought it was a big rug, a big fire-resistant rug. Turns out it's an iron door, so we compromised and called it the Iron Curtain, or the Iron Carpet. Anyway, it doesn't matter, hide here, you'll be safe. We're now on to phase 2. At this point, you have access to the rest of the arena. You have another cannon, 2 ballistas, the roaming ballista, and eventually the Dragonator. Again, save all of these for your cannon guy running heavy artillery since he'll do more damage. You do also have access to 2 one-shot binders, these located by each of the ballistas, and they can be used by anyone, but save them for the right time. At the beginning of this phase, Fatalis will be in the air. Easiest way to bring him down is to clutch claw onto him and yeet him into the ground. Failing that, you can use the ballista too, but however you do it, just get him out of the sky. In this phase, I'd recommend again having your heavy artillery user load the cannons, while the other 3 deal damage to Fatalis and attempt to get the flint shot into the wall while he's not enraged. Once that's done, again move over to the cannons to make it easier for your cannon users to land all the shots. At this point, you can use a one-shot binder to tie him down to make it easier, but it isn't 100% necessary. Again, following the cannon shots, depending on the damage dealt, there's a good chance you might get another knockdown, but if not, I'd recommend then using the Roman Ballista to finish the job. Essentially, in each of these phases, good use of the mounted weaponry is a surefire way to bring Fatalis crashing down to the ground. Again, anytime he's down, focus on the head. Ideally, in this second phase, you want to try and get your first head break. You want to follow this process, keep damaging him, and provided you've pulled off all the flint shots, hit him into the wall, fired the cannons and the ballista, and done decent damage, he should then fly to the front of the arena and begin his fire breath. Now you need to leg it to the back and get into the gate and pull the lever to seal the team inside. When the flames are starting, you can survive them for a bit, so you do have some time to run. But once everyone is inside, pull the lever as Fatalis' fire gets stronger, and eventually the door will melt, but you will be left alive. After this, Fatalis will then enter phase 3, his chest will begin glowing, his fire attacks will deal more damage, and now you're getting towards the end, but it is not over yet. The setup from here on out is very similar. Keep in mind, if you've used the cannons, there's a good chance they may have respawned a little bit of ammo, so you may be able to pull off a few more cannon or ballista shots, but from here on out, it's about damage. Attack him, flint shot him into the wall whenever you can, and survive. He has a few new moves in this stage, most notably his 360 fire move, where he spins around in a circle breathing fire. The easiest way to avoid this is to either be far enough away, or be quite literally right next to him by his back legs. The key part about this phase is that you'll be notified that the Dragonator is going to be available. Now, landing the Dragonator is incredibly important. You do not want to miss this because it does huge damage. On 4-player scaling, because we did this as a 4-man team, each spike does around 8,000 damage, and there's 2 of them, so that's 2 bouts of 8,000 damage. However, if you want to do even more, then what we actually did at this point was had 1 to 2 people, in this case TwoSixNine and Paradise Central, Farcaster back to camp and change to a light bowgun setup, and we then put Fatalis to sleep in front of the Dragonator. He goes to sleep pretty easily, so it's not too bad, and if you pull this off, one of the spikes from the Dragonator will instead deal 17,000 damage, while the other still does 8, since you only get double damage on whatever is the first thing to hit him. But this is huge, this is a massive number. Doing this in and of itself should trigger the next phase, or put him incredibly close to it. A little bit more damage, and he'll once again fly up for another Hellfire Blast. The difference now is that you don't have a door to hide behind. Now you quite literally have to run beneath Fatalis to be safe. Keep in mind, the fire breath fans out in a cone shape, so stay on the outsides and run towards him. Again, you can survive some of the flames, but if anyone gets to safety first, then healing your team with life powders is a surefire way to ensure that everybody survives. Now you've dealt the Dragonator damage, you should be pretty close to the end. Depending on the damage you've dealt, you may have just one more fire phase to survive through, but from this point onwards the fight is pretty much the same. Damage Fatalis with whatever you can, flint shot him, and keep him under control with Dragon Pods. Keep in mind towards the end he does get angry, like really angry, so this is a good point to, vibe check him, fire some Dragon Pods at him. It will quite literally save your team's lives, but assuming you can stay alive and dish out the damage, from here on out it is just a case of hit him until he's dead. You've done all the main phases, you've survived his first onslaught, you've survived the gate phase, you've dealt the Dragonator damage, now it quite literally is a case of just fight until the end. And that, my friends, is how you take down Fatalis. But there's a little bit more. Just to be extra useful, here's a few more tips. Fatalis has a really annoying cone fire attack. If you're caught inside this, it is basically game over. Unless, of course, you run away from it and you Superman dive continuously. That will keep you alive. However, more importantly, if you see this move coming, yes, you can fire some Dragon Pods to interrupt it, but if your entire team is safe, you're actually better off getting to his side because it actually gives you a great opening to deal damage to his head. Just make sure you don't use any high commitment moves, because once the flames are done, it leaves an explosive pool on the ground and you don't want to be hit by that. Additionally, if you see him rear up on his hind legs and look down, he's preparing his Kulftaroth special, the downwards fire, and this will also destroy you in an instant. Getting behind him is the safest place to be, just don't get caught in his legs because otherwise you're also probably dead. So, with the tips done and dusted, and the strategy for fighting Fatalis laid out, here's a very quick look at what myself and the team were running. None of us have super meta sets with perfect decorations, so for the most part what we have should be pretty attainable. I ran a sword and shield build with the Alatreon SNS with health augment and the following skills. Largely speaking, lots of crit and dragon attack. However, don't sleep on free meal, it is an absolute game changer, and also Divine Blessing makes the whole experience just so much better. In fact, Divine Blessing is incredibly good in this hunt. TwoSixNine ran a longsword build, but he actually swapped out some of the damage and put in some wide range to help heal us during the hunt. That probably should have been my job as the sword and shield user, but don't worry about that. It worked for us, so it's all gravy. Paradise Central had a switch axe so he could zero-sum discharge Fatalis in the head all the time with a mixture of attack and defensive skills. And Vestmore was our cannon guy, so he ran dual blades with a mix of crit, dragon element, and the important heavy artillery. So as you can see, nothing crazy meta or min-max, just some average sets with some decent defense, but they saw us through to completion and they got the job done. But that, my friends, is pretty much it. That's a rundown on how to defeat Fatalis with as many useful tips as we can think of, or at least all the tips we found useful to us during our hunts. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below, but otherwise, thank you for watching, hope this helps, and good luck hunting Fatalis.
It's over? You are.
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget, if you haven't already done so, you can join the HyperX Gaming Discord. We've got an awesome community over there with so many different channels for you to chat loads of different topics and different games. I'm in there, the team's in there. If you guys want to chat with us, find people to play with, it's just in general a great place to be. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our future uploads.